Hello everyone, this is Lavins from Hexagon PC with my very first video review. So let's get started. I've got Corsair's latest Air series Micro-ITX case called the Air 240. Even though it's a smaller version of its popular older brother, the Air 540, it still retains its efficient air cooling capabilities and fantastic cable management features. Starting with the front panel, you can see the Corsair logo, reset and power switch, front panel audio jacks, and a pair of USB 3.0 slots. Going to the rear side of the case, you'll see two 80mm fan mounts, the motherboard I/O cutout, and a hard drive cage door. On a side note, Corsair has implemented the captive thumb-screw system throughout this case and it's fantastic. There are 3 hard drive sleds which are flexible and completely toolless, so swapping drives is easy. On the PSU side of the case, there's a nice flexible magnetic dust filter which feels similar to the ones included in the 750D and the 900D. This is also another great addition as the Air 540 does not include one. Both side panels utilize the captive thumb-screw system and it's difficult to go back to a case without them. On the side panel itself, there are 120mm fan mounts for an additional intake or use with a 120mm CLC. On the inside of the PSU bay, there are 4 rubber standoffs to cushion your PSU and prevent it from getting scratched, as well as 4 cable tie mounts. You can remove the hard drive cage by unscrewing the captive thumb screw and pushing the cage towards the front of the case. This then reveals the motherboard cutout. There are 6 grommets and just as many cable tie mounts. This promotes fantastic cable management and ensures that your cables stay out of the way. As someone who builds custom sleeving, I always encourage everyone to manage their cables, even though it won't be seen in a case like this. You never know, you might actually enjoy it. You can use any length of power supply in this case, starting from 116mm all the way up to 221mm. So basically, like the RM450 all the way up to the AX1500i. Checking out the top panel, you'll notice that there aren't any captive thumb screws. It's because the top and bottom panels are made out of plastic. Pull backwards and lift, and you'll remove the panel. Even though you can't really remove the filter, take the whole thing outside for easy cleaning. And we're now at the top of the chassis, where you can get access to some of the case's best features. If you ever need to move or ship your system and don't want your drives flying around, insert a screw and it will secure your drives in place. This smaller hole secures your drive cage onto the chassis. The 2.5-inch drive cage holds 3 sleds that are also flexible and toolless in design. And this screw here actually secures the cage onto the chassis. And check out these rails. They're great because you can place your 120mm fans in any configuration to better suit your motherboard and RAM. To remove the front panel, push the clips towards the inside of the case. Then, just separate it from the chassis. Removing the front panel reveals our 2 stock AF120L fans and the front I/O board. On the front panel, the Corsair logo is actually magnetic, so you can change its position based on the orientation of your case. You can turn the entire case towards laying on the PSU side, and the Corsair logo will match it. Additionally, the Air 240 comes with rubber feet that you can place onto the PSU side panel to ensure proper airflow. The front I/O board is attached to the chassis. If you ever need to remove your front panel, you won't have to worry about yanking your cables out. Man, I'd really like to see this implemented in more cases. You can also mount a 120 or a 240mm radiator up front. And finally, the best part of the case, the main chamber. You can see how it gets its name, as this case is designed with air cooling in mind. Checking out the front panel cables, the HD audio, USB 3.0, and power reset switch cables are all black to suit any color theme build. The Air 240 comes with 3 AF120L fans that are placed in the appropriate positions for optimum airflow and exhaust. And for some reason, I thought it was a good idea to point at the grommets again. Oh, and by the way, this is actually the main grommet you're supposed to use for your 8-pin EPS cable, not the one hidden behind the hard drive cage. In this case, there is a toolless PCI locking mechanism for easy card swapping. Just pull, insert your card, and then press firmly to lock in place. On a side note, you're probably wondering why this empty space wasn't utilized. It originally had an SSD mount there, but early testing proved that it somehow ruined the airflow, and CPU and GPU temps went up 3 to 7 degrees. Moving on, the Air 240 can house either a Mini-ITX or a Micro-ITX board. However, the Mini-ITX configuration provides better cooling support, and I'll explain in just a second. Having a Mini-ITX board in this case gives you access to the vertical grommets, while the Micro-ITX board covers it up. Custom sleevers be warned. I really want to see some builds done in this case using an ITX board. You can get better custom water cooling support, as you can run a 240mm radiator at the bottom and up front. Having a Micro-ITX board installed, you will most likely run into an issue with trying to install fans in the bottom. The fan will run into the USB or front panel audio headers and will prevent a clean installation. There is one downside that some of you guys might have been wondering about. I have a 780 Ti reference card installed with a 4.4 inch height, and it fits perfectly. However, if you plan to install a card above this height, you need to know that it might not even fit. I attempted to install an MSI 780 Lightning, but couldn't get past the chassis. Even if it could, fitment is really tight. It's also worth noting that I'm using an EK terminal block, and the ports sit an entire inch outside of the case. I've moved over to a 780 Ti classified, which sits at a massive 5.9 inch card height. Unfortunately, there's absolutely no way I'm getting this installed in the case. Here's a close-up of why. The cooler is just way too tall and can't get it past the locking mechanism post. But let's say you manage to install a 5-inch tall card in here, you're gonna have a bad time with power cables. Here are a pair of extensions that I made that use 18 gauge wire wrapped in paracord. You'll notice that you'll need to bend the cables right at the connector to ensure fitment once the side panel is on. I end up struggling to install the case panel due to how thick the power cables were and that they were pushing against the window. Now I'm using Corsair sleeve cables that you can purchase from the store. These cables are actually much stiffer than my custom made extensions, and training them is more difficult. Unless you train them right at the connector, they'll push even harder against the case window due to their stiffness. Overall, I believe this case to be fantastic for what it is. Priced at $90, you get so many features that even some $100 cases don't even have. Custom water cooling may be a challenge in this case, but you should keep in mind that it has air in its name. It's sad that you won't be able to use taller cards, but that shouldn't stop most of you guys from picking up this case for its features alone. Well guys, I had a lot of fun reviewing this Corsair Air 240. Let me know if you like this video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I've got more cases coming up, so be sure to keep an eye out. See you guys soon!